Good day, everyone. So today's lesson is going to be the absolute value function. Now we learned about the absolute value, how it works. That the absolute value is basically the distance of a number from zero. And now we're going to introduce it as a function. Now, what is a function in mathematics? Let's go through that a little bit. And let's remind ourselves that the function is basically a principle for which we are transforming something from one set to something in another set. For mathematics, this means from one set of numbers we're transforming things into another set of numbers. And the function itself tells us like there is an algorithm or the formula which we have to use to specifically transform specific numbers of one set into the specific numbers of the other set. And one last thing that we have to talk about the function, like basically the function is anything you do in your life. For example, everything has a function, brushing your teeth can be a function where you're using your teeth and a toothbrush as a starting set, and applying a specific method of brushing your teeth in order to have white and clean teeth, and I don't know, however you wanna have as a result. So you have a start, you have the result, you have a certain method, principle, or formula, or algorithm, however you wanna call this in-between thing, which you use to transform the starting position into the resulting position. And this is the function. Now, so far in mathematics, you have learned one function. And the one function that you did learn so far is linear function. So let's start with that. So usually, let me just write down one linear function. So f of x equals to ax plus b. This is the linear function that we learned. Now, first, let's go through naming everything that we have to name in the linear function. So, first thing is the name of the function. The name of the function is just the letter f. This is the name. X itself are the arguments. Or the starting values. The values you put in and they are known. Like we usually use letter x for something that is unknown, while for the function x is something that we know. You can put any value you like from the starting set in order to get the certain result. Okay, now there are two more things in the linear function itself, and they are specific to the linear function, and these are the coefficients a and b. Coefficients, like they are they are numbers, also called constants, because they are given to you. They are not, again, unknown. There are certain numbers. Usually for a we use a number that's different than zero. A is different than zero, just so that you don't have something that is not linear. This makes it all linear, while b can be of course zero. Now, they have specific names in mathematics for the linear function. For example, a is the slope, while b itself is the y-intercept. So now we have defined everything about the linear function. Specifically, this is the algorithm. The x's would be part of the starting set. It's also called domain. They're part of domain. So you have like domain of someone's work is this. So domain of the function are values x, and the results are f of x. And this is the last thing, that this is something that is missed in a lot of math classes, that f of x is actually a value of function. of function f. So f of x itself is not a function, f is a function, while f of x is the value for a given x, for certain specific x. Now, also what we write in mathematics, and this is something that we did learn so far, so let's remember it, is that that f of x equals y. Okay, f of x equals y. Why is that important that we say that it is equal to y? Because of the coordinate system, where x's are going to be on the x-axis, while f of x's or y's are going to be on the y-axis. Okay? So, this is everything considering the linear function. Now, today's lesson is of course not about the linear function. Today's lesson is about absolute value function. Now let's start with the most basic absolute value function, and that is going to be, let's start with the example 1. F of x equals to absolute value of x. As simple as that. Not anything extra, nothing more to do at the moment. I just want to talk about the absolute value of x. Now, when we talk about the function, there is one last thing that I want to talk about before I go into all of this. The algorithm is one way of mathematically representing a function. There are two other ways with which we can represent a function. Let's go through them just before I go into the specific situation here, because I'm going to use these all methods in the specific situations, for example 1. So basically what is this? We can either use the algorithm or formula. This is one method. Another is to write it as the table, where you can pick values for the x, then you can calculate values y, because y is equal to f of x. This is the idea. Now, for specific x, you can then calculate y. And the last representation of a function is its graph. So this would be the first thing, this would be the second thing, and the third thing, I'll apologize, I'm using the numerals in Croatian. I'm just used to it at the moment. I have a lot of classes that I'm teaching at the moment, and yeah, hope you understand. You can also write it at first, second, third in English numerals. So the last one would be the graph in coordinate system, x, y, 0, 1, and 1. So this is something basic that we always have to write down. And for example, the line would be the graph. How do we write down the graph? Name it as, so that we know that this line is graph. So there are three ways how we can express or how we can write down a function. So using the algorithm, formula, table, or the graph. Basically, this means that we're going to do all of these three things in this example. Now, first thing, you are already given the algorithm. Here we go. First thing, we have the algorithm. And with the algorithm, we know, using the algorithm, we can say that this is the absolute value function. At the moment, I cannot determine from the table and the graph, while for the future you will be able to determine definitely from the graph whether it is absolute value function or something else. So now there is a usual transition. We usually go from the algorithm to the table, and from the table then to the graph. And this is what I'm going to do in this here case. While in general in mathematics you can go from the graph to the algorithm, graph to the table. You can mix and match things. You don't have to use a certain method in the future to determine everything. But this is now the example, so let's go through the basics of it all. Okay, algorithm is already given. Now there is something specific about the x. X can be any real number. So the domain of the absolute value can be any number you like. Now, I am not going to go through the definition of absolute value itself. Once again, I told it at the beginning, as the distance. There is also about absolute value. I'm going to just write it down on the side, because I'm going to be able to use this as the algebra definition. So I can maybe use it for figuring things out in the future. Now, let's go and let's make a table. Let's go with the table. X's and Y's. Now, how to pick the X's? How to pick the X's? Now, basically, this will tell you how to pick them in this most basic sense. Now, in the future, when we complicate the things a little bit, when we are not going to have just the absolute value of X, but the idea is to have more coefficients in all of this. At the moment, you don't have any coefficients here given specifically. They exist, but they're not formed here specifically. Well, let's look at the definition. So, positive values, negative values, and 0. So let's have them all together. Let's have a couple of positive, let's have a couple of negative, and let's have 0 in all of this. Then we have gone through everything that is revolving around the absolute value, because you don't want to apply absolute value just to the certain type of numbers. You want to have all types on it, and then you will see what actually happens. Now, how we can do it? Let's start with the basic. Let's start with a couple of negative numbers. We usually want to ascend how we further go. So going from the negative would be the starting position. And now I'm going to pick values, for example, -2, -1. These are two negative values. I applaud you, or I would urge you to use two of them. Then let's use neutral, 0. And let's then use two positive. Well, why not? It's opposite values than these two. So we're going to be 1 and 2. As simple as that. So now that we put -2 into the function itself, into the algorithm of the function, so absolute value of -2 is going to be 2. Absolute value of -1 is going to be 1. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of 2 is 2. And we have gotten something like this. And this is the table. Now we have done the second situation. Of course, you can expand things. We have gone here. I have picked, for example, only integers. You can also pick rational numbers, any real numbers, if you like. Only thing that you have to know at this very moment is to use both positive and negative values. This is the idea of how to pick numbers for the table. Now, once that we have the table, we can go and draw the graph of the given function. I'm immediately going to extend 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3, -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3, -4. Of course, in your notebooks, you have squares. You can draw it as neatly as possible, while I'm going to have to use the sketch. Now let's start drawing. Now basically, why am I filling the table like this? You can also use it as 2 rows. I'm using it as 2 columns because in that way I see the coordinates. These are basically the coordinates of points which represent the graph of the function, or which are part of the graph. Now I can name them, of course, A, B, C, D, and E. Now in general, you are not going to do that, okay? You don't have to write down all the letters, but this is the example. I'm gonna go through it as thoroughly as possible. So let's start with point A, which coordinates are -2 and 2. -2 and 2. So here is going to be point A. B is -1, 1. -1, 1. Here is B. Then C is 0, 0. Okay, here is going to be the C. D is 1, 1. Here is D. And 2, 2 is going to be E. Okay, so we have gotten a couple of points. We have, or actually 5 points. Now, how should it look like? Now, at the moment, we haven't connected them. Now, if you would put any values in between -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, and so on, like for example 0.5 or 0.1 and so on, you would be able to see that the points are going to look somewhat like this. If you would continue on further than 2 or lesser than -2, the things would appear similar to this. Okay, similar to this. Now, I'm not connecting it yet. But since you can pick any real number for the x, this means you can pick any number on the x-axis, and there is infinite amount of them. Basically what happens is that you can connect all of these points into one continuous point or rays. Now, what is a ray in mathematics? Ray is polupravac. Basically what we have gotten here is 2 rays. Na hrvatskome 2 polupravca. Where the starting point for all of them is in both of them, I apologize, is in C. So this is where the starting point for both of these rays is. Now, unlike linear function, now we haven't got a line, but we got 2 rays which represent the graph of absolute value. Now, this graph is usually called V. It's usually called V. It's simple as that, because it resembles letter V. It resembles V. So this is why it's called like that. And this is the graph of the absolute value, and it is going to be for any absolute value, just so you know. Now, I'm going to give you on Lumen I'm also going to put it in the description of this video for everybody, because the Lumen sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to give you 2 links. The first link is going to be, let's use English numerals. So the first link is going to be download GeoGebra or GeoGebra or GeoGebra, ajmo mi to tako. It is a software, mathematical software. It's free. I'm going to give you the direct link, so don't worry about it. Where you can graphically, in coordinate system, represent functions. You can also draw objects in 3D, or you can draw shapes in 2D, and so on. So you can do a lot of things. And it is really good tool in mathematics, especially for you in school. And this is the first time that this has given me opportunity to try it with you. If you're able to download it, it's not, I think it's 15 megabytes, something like that. It's not that big. And it's free, of course, and it's really good. And if you try it for yourself, you can learn a lot of things. Now, second thing that I'm going to give you, this is why you need GeoGebra first. Now, second thing with all of this is going to be, I'm going to give you a already prepared, how am I going to call it? Sheet. Let's say it's a sheet. I'm going to give you a sheet already given to you with sliders. Everything is prepared for you. You're also in this sheet be given, so open the sheet once you install GeoGebra. What is going to be in it? Now, I want you to try for yourself what is going to be f of x equals to a times absolute value of bx minus c plus d. Okay, this is the general absolute value function. Okay, so you will have to see how A, B, C, and D affect graph of the function. What I applaud you, or what would I encourage you to do? Try both positive, negative, values for A, B, C, and D. For A and B, never go with 0, okay, never go with 0. And make sure that you combine them all together at certain points. So start, for example, first, see what's A doing. Second, see what's B going to do. Third, see how C is going to affect. And fourth, see how D is going to affect. After that, the fifth thing, combine B and C. And write down in your textbook how each of these coefficients affects the graph of the function. Okay, now how to do it? The sliders themselves, they look like this. I'm just gonna show you one of them. You have a line and have a point on the line, and it's called, for example, A equals 1. You can hold left click on with your mouse on the point, move it left and right, and you're going to see what it does to the graph itself. Write those things down, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to draw this all together. But why I want to show you this? These coefficients will be applicable, or this what you learn from all of this is going to be applicable for any functions in the future. Now, in the first grade, for the functions, you learn basically linear and quadratic function. And you're done. We're done with functions for the first grade. In the second grade, whole first term, we are going to learn quadratic function. And this is going to be new function for all of you, most of you. Then in the second term of the second grade, we're going to learn 2 more functions, and they are called exponential and logarithmic function. Then in third grade, we continue on with trigonometric functions. Now this is nothing new actually to you, because now in first grade we already did learn trigonometric ratios, and we're going to learn that these ratios are not actually just the ratios, they're also functions. And then in the fourth grade, we're going to summarize everything that we learned about functions, put it all together, and whole year we are going to dedicate only to functions and see how things are going. And each time in the future that we're going to go through things, we're going to go through things using this here form. Basically, this here form is the basics for everything, and how you can easily then draw things. So for example, what does A do to the graph, what does B do to the graph, C and D do to the graph of any function given, if it's written in this here form. Now it can be changed, like it doesn't have to be with absolute value. This is absolute value function then, but if for example it was a trigonometric function, this is something in the third grade, here would be written a sine of bx minus c plus d. And this is how then you can apply it to the same principles from the absolute value function to sine function, for example. Now this is something that we're going to learn in 2 years. But I want to show you a little bit of what is going ahead and why we need to learn all of this. Thank you guys for listening. Now one thing for the ending. Now, so this is the homework. Now I know this is the lesson from the last week. I had to re-record it 3 times already, because I couldn't have uploaded it, and it's after a while told me that the video is corrupted. Not just that my bandwidth at home is bad, it's also that the videos weren't bad. I hope that this one is going to work. If it works, you're gonna have it. And I know this is something from the last week. Basically, this whole lesson is would be the two lessons. or that we did, that we are missing from the last week. Basically, the first lesson would be a specific absolute value and what we know already about the function and the linear function for the coefficients. One last thing that I would like you to do, considering the homework, try and figure out how would you name these coefficients A, B, C, and D, considering that these are called, A is called, which is with the x as the slope, while B is y-intercept. Maybe these have also some specific names, so try and figure them out for yourself. This is for extra, as something extra. So, first lesson would be about specific absolute value function, while the second lesson then would be the figuring out how the coefficients work for the general absolute value function. And what do they do, and what do they do specifically to the graph. So, hope you have fun with this, try it for yourself, and see you in the next video.